starting the YouTube now. We have one of our favorite guests is going to be online, but I want to take the opportunity to thank CTN for covering us this morning. It is a public service to be able to see your democracy at work, and the fact that we have CTN broadcasting and the benefit of this conversation won't only be live at 10 a.m. on a Friday, but you'll see it different times throughout the week as the week goes on. And that's what's wonderful about CTN is that it keeps bringing this programming so that your words are actually great. Ready? And with that, as we know, welcome everyone. My name is Steven Hernandez, and I am the Executive Director of the Connecticut Coalition for Achievement Now. It is such an honor to be here today to host this conversation on what is probably one of the most important aspects of the work that is done here in this building, which is education, and more specifically, high dosage tutoring, high impact tutoring, as I like to call it. I'm honored especially because I am here with the co-chairs of the Education Committee of this legislature. And really what their presence here evidences is their true commitment to education policy, and to responding to what seems to be a national call to undo by doing and recommitting to what is most important, and that is the knowledge-based future of our young people. So with that, I'd like to turn over the mic just for a couple minutes to our leaders so that they can introduce themselves to you and just say a couple words about why this is important to them. And I'll start with Senator McCrory.
Ladies always go first. So I'm gonna pass it over to my co-chair, Rep. Lee.
After you.
I was raised right. So when you hear me, everything that comes my mouth is because I was raised right. Okay. Understand that. Let's have that foundation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. I am really excited to be able to help facilitate this conversation today. I think we know um, our kids are in crisis. We have more students not reading on grade level than reading on grade level in Connecticut. And there couldn't be something more important than addressing that with some bold action and urgency. And these are the folks who have been committed to exactly that work. I think the pandemic gave us an opportunity to really shine a spotlight on what we knew was already happening. And this is a program that has been incredibly successful. And I think in the post pandemic lens in addressing learning loss. But that needs to continue because our students aren't where they need to be successful in life. And that is the work we are all committed to, is ensuring our young people are prepared to be successful and engaging in their communities and living meaningful, productive lives. And that's what public education does for our young people. And I think it's incumbent on us to ensure we never take our eyes off that ball. So meeting the needs of our kids is essential in getting them the reading instruction that they deserve. And I was just telling Stephen, I actually got my start in the education space as a high dosage tutor on the west side of Chicago now many years ago, and realizing that our democracy is really built upon the assumption that every child has access to a high quality public education. And for too many of our children, that really is just not true. And so the idea of the American dream is just an idea for them. And this is this is a part of the work that really helps ensure every child does have a pathway to succeed. And so I'm really excited to help highlight the importance and the success of this and set it up to be successful going forward into the next biennium, certainly, and hopefully far beyond. So thank you, Stephen, for all the work you've done. And I just also want to take a moment to thank Jazz, who is the Education Committee clerk and has been instrumental in getting everybody here and this organized and on CTN. And not only will it be recording or being aired a few times over the week, it also will be recorded for distribution. So for anyone who couldn't be here, we can share it directly with them. But thanks, Jazz.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction, because as a kid who grew up in the south side of Chicago, who benefited from early math interventions, it's people like you that make a difference in the lives of our kids. So thank you. And now, Senator McCrory.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for having me here and my co-chairs and everyone around the table and all you guys who are in person and also watching on CTN. I'll just say, I'm Senator McCory. I've been the chair of this committee for like 3-4 years. I've been on this committee 19 of my 20th years since I've been here. I'm an educator, 34 years. All my education has been, my professional experience has been in Hartford 18 years, and for the remainder with Craig. Um, Reading is so important. I was an elementary school teacher. I can't tell you how important it is for our children to have the ability to read, and especially by 3rd grade. All the data talks to it, speaks to it, how important it is. I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I want to know what programs are out there that are available so we can get more people in our classrooms to help our children. All the research says, I say this all the time, that all our children learn when they're taught by a diverse teaching population. And one of the ways we get a lot of people into our schools is to create programs and opportunity for them to tutor. And once you get that feel for tutoring, feel that you're helping a human being, feel that you can see that you work every single day when you go to work, you're changing the lives of someone. It's so important and it's so rewarding. And education is a great field, probably the most important field we can have, and probably the most important field we need right now in this democracy, because you can't have a democracy if everyone is not learning. So, and everyone has the ability to learn. And what we have to understand that everyone learns differently at different levels, but all of them have the ability to it. So when you can pour into someone and give them that gift, that God gift that they have in them, and pull it out of them and teach them how to read. And when you read, you learn how to think, and now you can be a productive citizen in society. That's what we're here for. And I want to find and hear about what these young people are doing, and I want to hear about more work about what Steve is doing and my colleagues from the State Department, because we're all invested in this, and we have to put our heads together. And we've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm just happy to be able to be at this forum working with you, Stephen, because I know you're committed to it, and the people around me are committed to making this a reality. So those are my words for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to our leaders. So we're going to get right to it because there's a lot of substance here, and there are people here who really exemplify the level of investment, the type of investment that we need to make, both inside of institutions like these, but also all the way to inside of your home. This is an all hands approach to really making a difference. And I'm just so excited about our panel today. And I want to take a moment just to thank the Commissioner of Education, because this commissioner has really not only invested herself in her own resources to teach us that remind us that the sky is not the limit. That has been her motto from the beginning. And we're so honored to have a couple of her representatives here with us today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mic to each of you, each of our panelists, and give you about 30 seconds to introduce yourselves, just to share with us a little bit of your background and why it's relevant to today's conversation. I'm going to go a little different and start with our online guests, just because no one ever starts with Zoom people, where they're always left to the end. So I'm going to start with our online guests. And Carly, if you can hear us, Carly Robinson, if you could introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about why this matters to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Carly Robinson. I'm Director of Research at the SCALE Initiative, which is an educational initiative at Stanford University. And one of our flagship programs is the National Student Support Accelerator, which is focusing on understanding how we can equalize access to quality and high impact tutoring. I'm also a Connecticut resident who will have kids in public schools in a couple of years, so I have some skin in the game. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share more about what we have learned about in the research fields and high impact tutoring.
That's great. Thank you so much. And your video is great. Your audio is great. So we're off to a good start. And next, I'd like to introduce, I'm just going to list you in the order in which I see you on my list here. So next we have Irene Parisi, Chief Academic Officer of the department. Welcome, Irene.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, Irene Parisi. I've been an educator in Connecticut for over 25 years. I started my career in Meriden as a music teacher and just wanted to try out 3rd grade, 5th grade, and then went on to East Windsor Public Schools as an instructional coach. And I've always loved curriculum and making a difference in the child's life. So what are those programs we can provide? So went into director of curriculum and then lastly in Greenwich Public Schools for 8 years as an assistant superintendent until I got the call to say, yes, let's manage this pandemic together at the State Department of Ed. So I've been there since 2020, and I've been working with my colleague on HDT.
Great, and that's a great segue to our next guest, Ajit Gopalakrishnan. Welcome.
Thank you, Ajit Gopalakrishnan. I'm the Chief Performance Officer at the Department of Education. The Performance Office works on issues relative to data, assessment, accountability, measurement, research. My involvement with high-dosage tutoring in particular has, again, during the pandemic, my office actually led the program that implemented high-dosage tutoring in 43 districts using COVID relief funds. So I hope to share some of our findings, and I'm thrilled that there is such interest around this to really scale this up to more students across the state. So thank you for having us.
And thank you for being here. I see that we have Jewel Lucian with us. Welcome, Jewel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jewel Lucian. I am a Spelman graduating senior, and I am a current Ignite Fellow for 4 semesters now, and a incoming Teach for America core member for Connecticut.
Jewel, and thank you so much, Jewel. And, I just want to take a moment to thank you especially because I know that one of the commitments that you have, in fact, right after this conversation, is to engage, and you were committed to this, and you didn't want to miss the opportunity to go and do the work. And we really appreciate you, one of Connecticut's finest, doing the work nationally, as I understand it. So thank you. Thank you, Jewel. Ebony McMillan.
Hi, I'm Ebony McMillan. I am a current student at Goodwin University for Human Services. I'm also a mom of 4 amazing kiddos. I tutor math at East Hartford Middle School, so I do all the things.
That's so great. Thank you so much, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for being here. Next, we have Ms. Beatriz Perez.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beatriz Perez, and I am here as a parent of a student who has received high-dosage tutoring for almost the past 2 years, and I can't wait to share my story and how much that's helped him along the way.
Welcome. And next, we have Bob Janes.
Hi, folks. My name is Bob Janes. I'm the secondary math curriculum supervisor over at East Hartford Public Schools. So to position myself kind of between a couple of the other folks on the board, we were one of the 43 districts that received the high-dosage tutoring grant, the team that Ajit worked with. And Emmy is one of our tutors over at East Hartford Middle School. I was role for 7 years. Prior to this, I worked at a couple of the CREC schools teaching middle school and high school math. I'm excited to be here and promote this high-dosage tutoring cause today.
Thank you so much. And one of the ways in which we organize these conversations is that we put our lived experience and our experts forward first. But we always have the benefit, because we are in the people's house, of having legislators who join us at any given moment, maybe watching on CTN. And we just welcome our legislators who join us. And we're so happy that you're here. And please, at any given moment, if you would like to interject, I would like to welcome you to do so. So let's sit here together and learn together as we go. So with that, we go back to the magic of Zoom and to our to Carly Robinson. Carly, again, thank you so much. I know, Carly, your time is limited, but we're starting with you, and we're starting with the question that I think so many people have when they think about high dosage tutoring. What is high dosage tutoring? And so let's start there. And how do you define high dosage tutoring, and what makes it distinct from other tutoring models? Carly, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. That's a really great and important question. I think it's really important that we define what we mean when we're talking about tutoring, because it can mean so many different things to different people. Because tutoring can be a really effective way to support students. However, there's different approaches and models of tutoring, and not all of these approaches are effective or equitable. And so the tutoring programs that are, I would say, represented in the research space that have proven to work tend to share several key elements, which we believe contribute to tutoring being high dosage or high impact. So what are they? What's the definition? So We say high impact, high dosage tutoring involves students receiving one-on-one or small group instruction from a consistent, well-trained tutor. And students are meeting with this tutor, multiple times per week for a developmentally appropriate amount of time. And tutors use high quality curriculum that supplements what the student is learning in school, while also using data to track student progress and inform instruction. So, I can talk about this forever and happy to answer follow-up questions, but that's sort of like the core definition of high impact tutoring.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit more about, those core principles that make high dosage tutoring effective. We've seen the numbers, we've seen the data, but what are the core principles that drive high dosage tutoring effectivity?
Yes, I think in some ways it's actually helpful to not only describe what we understand to be the elements of high impact tutoring, these core principles, but also to hone in on what it is and isn't. And so again, this information is based on the large body of rigorous research available to date, and will continue to evolve as we learn more about tutoring effectiveness and how to scale it. And we are and others conducting a number of research studies to continue to learn more. But based on what the research tells us today, high impact tutoring isn't irregular homework help. It is consistent instruction that develops that strong relationship between the student and the tutor that increases well-being as well as content-specific learning. So that consistent tutor that can build that relationship-based instruction, that is like really core to this whole idea. And so there's not a different tutor at each session. This consistency is important because the questions then are focused on understanding what the student knows and what the student needs to know. And it's not just focused on question resolution where the students bring in questions, because often they don't necessarily know what they needed help on. And sessions are not, they're built around these students' needs as informed by the data. So this focus on data use is also sort of critical. It's because, like I said, not reliant on students bringing what they need, but instead using the data to inform sort of where the gaps might be. Also critically, high impact tutoring is focused on acceleration. So the students can build the specific skills they need for grade level work. It's not focused on just remediation. And it's intensive, it's not ad hoc. And so these regular meetings are happening several times per week. This is where the implementation really matters. We also consider, instruction is synchronous, but it can be either in person or virtual. But when we talk about high impact tutoring, it's not asynchronous or on demand, where students are logging in as they need help. And finally, we would say, it's really, the goal is for it to be accessible to all students in need. And as a result, it doesn't rely on parents to take it up or pay for the tutoring. And so in some ways, I think there's a lot of logic and it's relatively straightforward underlying these principles, but implementing it can be tricky.
That's great, and thank you for that. Oftentimes we think about tutoring, high dosage tutoring, about catching up, but it's also about taking flight, as we were talking about earlier. And that's critically important because we don't want lowest common denominator for our learners. We want the best that they are capable of. And I see some of our representatives from our leaders, our educational leaders in the state. I see representatives from our teachers here in the state. So I think the question always comes to mind, Carly, is how does high dosage tutoring align with broader education goals and standards? That's an important question that we ask here in Connecticut, is alignment.
Yeah, so I just think the focus on supporting student learning and the benefits conferred by having another caring, consistent educator in a student's life are just really aligned with the broader goals of education. And I think that's really why we're seeing states and districts making these big investments into tutoring. And so we see that it's growing and effective. I think during the 23-24 school year, something like almost 50% of public schools reported offering high dosage tutoring. And over 90% of these that did rated tutoring as effective in improving student outcomes. So like they are buying in to the programs that the tutoring programs that they're offering their students. And I think, this alignment is evident in when certain states are now, even requiring tutoring for certain groups of students. I think in Louisiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma are some that come to mind. And, I think the other sort of piece of alignment is we're seeing districts integrating tutoring into MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support frameworks. And states are embedding tutoring into their larger initiatives. It's a part of Tennessee and Louisiana's third grade attention policy. Oregon has an early literacy success initiative where tutoring is a main component. So I just see all of this evidence across the country, and with what you all are doing really points, and sort of the leadership and educator buy-in when they see the positive effects it can have on students, just shows me how aligned tutoring will be with the larger educational goals.
Thank you for that. And I think the question on everybody's mind, including parents who are wondering whether this is right for their child or whether it's going to make a difference. How do we know this is working? How do you know this is working? What has your research told you? And tell us a little bit about some of the experiences that people are having on the ground with high dosage tutoring.
Yeah, so as an educational researcher, rarely in research do we have so much evidence pointing to the promise of a specific approach. Researchers have actually performed over 150 randomized controlled trials, which are systematic studies of program effects that do a great job of isolating the true effect of the program on student learning. And these studies show positive effects of tutoring across grade levels and subject areas, with effects in many cases ranging from half a year to more than a year of learning over one, in addition to what students might receive, which is sort of business as usual education. And I think what, we as a research team have continued to conduct research showing high impact tutoring can be effective when scaled, like you're all doing here. And I think a few key takeaways from our research work is that implementation matters. I think during the pandemic, people got really excited about opt-in tutoring as a resource, as something that could be offered to all students. But in practice, it's really not reaching the students who are farthest behind. Relying on students to sort of opt in when they need help and work with sort of a tutor ad hoc. It's not what we're talking about and what the research base has shown to be effective, and that sort of borne out in practice. We saw that. We also, I think, are learning about what are the key features. And so people had a lot of questions about, all the research has really been done in person tutoring. And we have seen in the past couple of years that virtual tutoring with a human tutor can be an effective approach to learning acceleration. And so that really opens up a lot of opportunity to reach more students and scale these programs. I think related to that is, the hot button word or the buzzword AI is, I think there's a real opportunity, a potential for AI applications to support human tutors, not replace them, support them. We conducted a study where we're providing tutors with an AI tutor co-pilot that actually helped improve their effectiveness as they were working with students on math remediation. And so I think there's this opportunity to think about the additional supports we can provide with these tutors. And then just a couple other ones that I'm particularly excited about. I think the recommendation has always been, 3 times a week, 30 minutes or more. That's sort of the dosage that's needed for this high dosage tutoring. But there's recent evidence for younger students, short bursts can be actually quite effective, particularly in early literacy tutoring. So the right length for tutoring sessions might need to account for this developmental appropriateness and, how much attention does a kindergartner have at a given time. And finally, I think, and this speaks to sort of the non-academic benefits too, is that we found that tutoring can have an impact on student attendance. We found that student attendance improves on days when tutoring sessions are scheduled. So kids are more likely to attend school on days when they know that they're going to have tutoring. And I think that's the real magic of introducing another caring educator in a student's life that can work, that is able to builds this, individualized and personalized relationship.
Thank you for that. And oftentimes, and well, I shouldn't say oftentimes, it's not very often, I should say, that the stars align when it comes to policy, especially education policy. We have national trends as they may be going, but we have local effort and local energy. But you're doing something right when not only you have this level of advocacy as we see in the room today and as we've had in preparation for today's conversation around something that matters like and has impact like high dosage tutoring, but you have not a governor and a commission that are not only talking the talk but investing in the right ways when it comes to this work. So I'm going to turn to the representatives of the education department and just ask you specifically, Irene, if you will, can you detail the specific investments that Connecticut is making with high dosage tutoring programs here in the state?
Absolutely. Thank you. And certainly, I'll invite my colleague Ajit Gopalakrishnan to share too, because he was the lead at the very onset. But as was shared in the beginning, Commissioner Russell Tucker committed our relief funds, our BESSER funds, to provide for grants and aid to districts to participate. And at the onset, we committed 11.2 million allocated from the state set aside portion of our ARPESA to create that competitive grant, to allow for 43 districts to ultimately participate, 14 of which are alliance districts, to offer the tutoring during the school hours. So to underscore during the school day and in-person work as much as we could. We knew that 40 districts were offering in-person tutoring exclusively, and there was a focus on grades 6 through 9 mathematics because through our data, we knew that that was a need and we needed to address that. The model we did provide for, like, as was discussed, like what are the key design principles necessary for success? And so there were some program commitments, ensuring that the sessions, like you said, developmentally appropriate sessions were held at least 3 times a week for those 30-minute sessions, and a low student to teacher ratio, which was really critical because I think relationship development is key to get those kids coming back and ensuring that it does look different than what's happening in the classroom. You don't want it to be more of something that may not be working. This had to be different. But I'm going to pause there and throw it on over to Ajit to see if there's something else to add.
Thank you, Irene. I would just add that when we put out this grant application, adherence to the model was very important. We had obviously given large investments through the ARPESSER formula grants to districts. So this 11.2 million was a discretionary department priority that we carved out through the state set aside funds to invest in high dosage tutoring. So we wanted to make sure that when we put this particular funds out, that it was really important that there be truly that high dosage per week. And in the grant applications, and I believe there were almost 80 grant applications. So there's a lot of interest in this, and we couldn't fund everyone with this sort of effort that we had, but we were really sort of paying attention to the fidelity of the tutoring program that the districts were proposing. So that was kind of, I would say, one piece that I would add. The other piece that I would add is that who provides the tutoring is really key as well. The expertise of the tutor and the training that they receive is really key, not only to build relationships with the students, which is obviously vital, but also to work really hand in hand with the classroom teacher, because this is not happening in isolation or disconnected from what the student is experiencing day to day in the class. This has to be really tightly connected. So in our grant requirements, we basically said that it is really important that the curriculum and the materials that are used are really in alignment with what the district is using. So we went through a lengthy process to vet private organizations. We had a rubric that we used to evaluate the applications from private entities that sought to become, to quote, get on the approved list, if you will. But we also gave districts the choice that they could work with a private tutor. And remember, this was during like more than a year ago when it was even harder to get staff to work with our students. So the tutoring entities, the private tutoring entities often brought ready capacity, ready staff that could start in a few weeks. But we did give districts the opportunity, should they choose to use their own staff, they could do that too in this program. So we allowed sort of that flexibility. to do that. So I would say those are the points that I would add in terms of our model.
That's great. Thank you for that. You know, not only the fidelity of implementation, you know, one thing that I've always appreciated about your work is that the data keeps us honest. And we know that unless we implement with fidelity and that we have the right implementers in place, we're not going to have the data, we're not going to have the outcomes that we're looking for. And as I look out into the room and I see that Dr. Dolores Garcia Blocker here from TFA is here, you know, that's why your commitment to having the right people doing the tutoring in Connecticut, so that not only our children understand that they have futures in the state, but that they can see themselves in this impact. And it's just really wonderful to see that. And I just wanted to appreciate you again for the work that you're doing at Teach for America and for the work that all of our teachers are doing here in the state. One of the most under-resourced but yet vitally important professions in the state are our teachers, and we always want to take the opportunity to thank you for your work. And Ajit, if I could have just a little bit more of your time, what are some of the challenges that you've faced, and perhaps you and Irene can help us with this, some of the challenges that you faced in implementing these programs, and how did you address them?
I'll lay out a couple and then turn it over to Irene. I think I mentioned staffing capacity, that even when working with private tutoring companies, sometimes, and we've heard this from districts during implementation, that the quality of the tutor might not have been ideal. Sometimes the persistence of the tutor may not have worked out, regardless of quality, that they didn't stay long enough to actually, they had some change and they left. Now all of a sudden tutoring had started and there was a hole in terms of that tutoring. So I think the quality and consistency of the tutoring staff is critical. And just remember, this was implemented in the 23-24 school year. So we gave the awards out, I think maybe like summer of 23, and districts were expected to get up and running like shortly thereafter. And many districts didn't get up and running, expectedly so, until December, January, et cetera. So the tutoring program that we implemented for the first year was really more of a half-year effort, just because of the nature of the timing and so on. So I think I really commend the districts, because they took this to heart and they did the best they could to implement it. But that was a challenge too. This is not a simple, quick program to put in place. It requires thought. And as the researcher mentioned, this is not about just providing homework help for all students. This is really about targeted tutoring for students who need. And when we look at our data, we see that too, as to the students who were identified for tutoring were definitely the ones who would have benefited from it, just based on prior achievement profiles of the students. So quality of the tutors, speed of implementation, and just getting a grant program up and running so quickly. So hopefully the next time we do it under Irene's leadership, we'll have more time and it'll be a much more planned implementation. But I would say those are some of the challenges, and I'll turn it over to Irene.
Great question, always. And I think in any implementation model, you have to kind of reverse engineer it to understand what might be the pitfalls. So intervention has been around, intervention models have been around for a long time. Our response to intervention, SRBI, and MTSS. So I think I'd like to turn this into a victory perhaps, or opportunity, that through the implementation and the superintendents being so involved and identifying points in the program, we learned how to do more and different going forward with our intervention models. So they knew what questions to be asking of those providing the services. We learned more about what has happened to the learner to make sure that we wrap around the best program for them. I've heard Ebony speak before about the relationship that she's built with those students to keep them running back to the programs. So I'd like to turn it into those opportunities that we realize, and that those are the things we continue to build upon in the future models, but also into the district intervention models that they are creating. So yeah, those are some victories and opportunities.
Thank you so much. And in the vein of victories and opportunities, I think it's important that not only have you committed to this work, one of the governor's opening investments this year has been to high dosage tutoring. And, you know, and to your point about resourcing and implementing with fidelity, we are now in the place where that proposed budget can be expanded. And we are so fortunate to have the leaders here who can actually endeavor to do that. So thank you for your work. And yes, Ajit, I see that you have another follow-up.
Just one sort of quick piece to add is that we have committed to evaluating this program. We have a research collaborative that's actually supported by faculty from our public and private higher ed universities. We call it the Center for Connecticut Education Research Collaboration. And those researchers have actually been looking closely at the outcomes of this program. And some of the effects that the researcher from Stanford talked about, we are starting to see with our program as well. Students making greater gains than those who didn't receive tutoring. Greater effects for in-person tutoring versus virtual, even though our virtual footprint was pretty small. So we are beginning to see that. And on the qualitative side, the importance of relationships. And one other point I'll make is student confidence with mathematics, because ours was focused on grade 6 through 9 mathematics. The students just feeling more confident with the topic is a really wonderful outcome of an initiative like this.
Thank you so much. And let's move now to the work and how it is manifesting in so many of our homes and resourced so intelligently through so many of our collective efforts. And I want to turn to Jewel Lucian. And Jewel, you know, one of the pillars of this work is that it isn't just about accelerated student learning, of course, and really reconnected, disconnected youth, but also the educator pipeline. And that's an element of this work that's quiet but really present. So how can high dosage tutoring programs serve as a pipeline for future educators?
Thank you. So for me, I when I first saw the opportunity to tutor, I didn't envision myself as being able to be a teacher, because I had always seen it as to a certain esteem where you had to be a certain person, a certain way to be an educator. So being able to participate in high dosage tutoring as a tutor, I was able to put myself in a position with multiple students and be able to have an impact. So it serves as a pipeline in the way that it provides a firsthand opportunity to experience being able to have an impact in students' lives and in their education. So which allowed me to see myself as being able to be an educator and being able to be a teacher for students. So that was one way that it provides a pipeline from my perspective. In addition, I myself have experienced tutoring through my own education, and it served it supplemented a lot of the things that I wasn't able to receive at home. With being a first generation American, my mom wasn't always able to support me with my academics, and being with having teachers that were overwhelmed and are doing their best. They also aren't able to help you to the full extent all the time. So throughout the matriculation of my education, I had always received tutoring, and luckily, I had always received tutoring for free. Um, and I don't believe that without that tutoring that I would be where I am today. So without receiving education, I wouldn't be able to educate. So I believe that that's a big part of the pipeline. Students receiving tutoring and being able to return that in the end.
You know, I really appreciate that. And there's a pay it forward ness about the fact that there's someone there that not only is teaching and helping you, but they're learning themselves about their own skill set and developing those skills that are critical to be a teacher and to be a better teacher. So tell us about some of the skills that you as a tutor are developing in becoming a better, more rooted in the teaching pedagogy.
For me, I would say the main skill was being able to be adaptive and be able to evolve with each teaching experience that I've had through Ignite. I've taught um, at 4 semesters, so I believe that it was 4 schools that I've taught at. And so each school was a different region as well. So it was different learning styles, different curriculums. So there was a lot of adjustment that had to be done. And I believe this applies to Connecticut as well, as their curriculums will vary among different schools that students may teach at. Um, so I think that that was a main quality, is being able to adapt, and I believe that also applies to like when you do become a teacher, learning that adaptability. Um, and additionally, I would say it's not necessarily a skill, but a quality was passion. Being a part of this experience through Ignite has it really does ignite a passion within you to be a part of change. Um, you when you see the opportunity for for tutoring and for Ignite, you're not just it doesn't speak on simply tutoring. It speaks on change. It speaks on justice. And so that is a big part of something that you attain through these opportunities, is gaining a passion, and passion is what keeps you in the classroom, is what keeps you wanting to pursue change and pursue supporting students through their educational journey.
Thank you for that. Thank you for focusing on the why of what you do and the why of why it is that you're pursuing this impactful career. I mean, you're at one of the premier institutions of higher learning in the country, and we always have to ask ourselves when we see the young people of Connecticut going off to other parts of the country and having so many opportunities at your disposal, why Connecticut? Like, why would you come back to Connecticut? You should come back to Connecticut, but why would you come back to Connecticut?
Thank you. For me, um, I well, for one, wanting to teach, I believe that education is freedom. So being a part of liberation is very important to me. And coming back to Connecticut, I grew up and as a Black woman, um, watching other students that looked like me and that had similar backgrounds as me in terms of socio economic status, and they fell below the waistline. And I always wondered um, if things didn't align the way that they did, where I would have ended up. So being viewing that, and then also being educated on the disparities within Connecticut in terms of education, um, and funding for areas with high populations of minorities, it was really important that, with my knowledge, that I be a part of being able to provide um, a sustainable and rich education for students that otherwise may not get that. So coming back to Connecticut, it definitely will be a full circle opportunity to be able to pour back into a community that poured into me.
Well, thank you for that. And you are not only welcome in Connecticut, but I know that your leadership and your focus on liberation is so critical to our future as a state, and we need you. And so thank you for that. And this is highly impactful work. And as you said, I think we should ask ourselves not why Connecticut, but why not Connecticut? Because there are so many examples in this state of how we are distinguishing ourselves from the rest of the country. And our hope is that we can continue to attract and retain this wonderful talent that we have. And among them are you, Ebony McMillan. So I want to welcome you, and I want to, and you and I were talking just a little bit while we started, and you said, I'm doing the work. And so tell us a little bit about how high dosage tutoring is really helping build those vital relationships between tutors, students, tutors, and their own children.
Well, first of all, I want to let you guys know that I am a mom of a high school senior who has no idea what he wants to do after graduation other than play Xbox. And The one thing that I am so proud of is that he sees me getting up every day and going to school, and he says that next year he's not 100% sure he wants to go to college, but he wants to tutor. So that is like my proud mommy moment. But I don't know. For me, it's being able to see the kids that I work with every day and the small wins. These kids are struggling. These kids have so much going on in their lives. And for 30 to 40 minutes a day, they get to come into a classroom that I share with an amazing teacher and work with me and another tutor and that teacher and have so many victories and walk out with a smile on their face and proud of them and ready to come back and try again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And that's something that, you know, I am so honored to be a part of and so thankful to be a part of. I taught before I had kids, and I took a 17-year absence to raise my family, and then my husband got sick, so I had to return back to work. And the opportunity to tutor was a way for me to, number one, get back into education and to provide for my family. And another opportunity that I am thankful for, I get to see what I do and how much it matters to the people around me, to the students, to their families, to the other teachers in the building, to the people in my community. And I also get to take little bits of what I do during the day and bring it into other facets of my life. I also work at a homeless shelter, and I'm able to take the tutoring that I was trained for through the Go Foundation and through East Hartford and bring that to some of the youths that are in the homeless shelter that I work with and help them to get their GED or their high school graduation. So
That's amazing. And you talk about those small wins and how those small wins add up. And not too long ago, and we're joined here by another one of our partners, which is the Commission on Women, Children, and Seniors Equity and Opportunity here at the legislature. And I'm reminded of a lot of the work that we did in social and emotional skills building, well-being. And it just feels like those small wins and that well-being is such a part of learning and being able to learn. So tell us a little bit about how your work is really supporting social and emotional well-being.
So one of the things that I love to brag about is that I not only tutor math, but I also write books. And I have some students who are struggling not only in math, but also in English. So, when we're done with our math, I'm able to help them with their English too. I'm able to read with them and, bring that full circle back to the math. So we work on word problems or we associate it with something that they're reading in their English class. And it's so much bigger than just math.
That's amazing. Between access and liberation, you find well-being. You find, somebody once asked, what is wrong with the executive, and this is horrible because we were talking about executive functioning in children, and people were starting to ask the question, well, maybe the problem with adults who are living in poverty is that they have not developed their executive functioning. And our response was, no, no, no. Maybe it's just poverty. Maybe it's poverty that is stifling. Lack of access is stifling. And what's wonderful about your work is that you are actually opening up experience, opportunity, and pathways that actually make our lives just a little bit better. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
And congratulations to being able to pay it forward through your own children now becoming stewards of this work. Thank you. Next, we're going to move to our next question, our next panelist. We have joining us Beatriz Perez. Beatriz, can you please share specific examples? And again, I love that we're focusing on our lived experience and people who are doing the work. And we just really appreciate each of you for being here with us. So if you could give us a couple of examples of how high dosage tutoring has accelerated learning for students in your experience in your life.
Thank you. Hello again. My son is a fourth grader at Benjamin Jepson in New Haven. And before boundless literacy tutoring with the high dosage tutoring came into play, he wasn't reading at the level for his age or for his grade. Um, he is what I call a COVID baby. He started kindergarten September 2020, and for New Haven, they didn't go into in-school learning until the following year. So this really just kind of just stopped life for everyone, right? But It was a crucial part of his learning and social skills. And as he started at home online with no real direction, it was really tough for us to get him on the right track. And throughout the years, we've been playing catch up, like you were stating before. We're just kind of just catching up with everything that happened after the pandemic. Um, I had to buy sight words, flashcards at home just to kind of get him through the phonics of it all, so he knows regular words when reading a Dr. Seuss book. And it was very frustrating for him. At times, he would even cry with him because he just couldn't get it. So he was mad at himself. And when we were approached by his teacher and his tutor, Miss Dawn, about the program at the school, we were so excited because this finally could be something that he can do and where he's going to get that one-on-one learning that he wasn't getting with the classes overall. So after the past 2 years with Miss Dawn, he went from barely reading anything, and now he's reading chapter books. And he's excited because he's actually thank you. He has a favorite line of books, The Alien Next Door. So we started, purchasing all of those books. So now he can read. I mean, he's reading everything. He's reading signs on the billboards when we're passing by driving, and he's reading commercials. So this has been a very life-changing moment for him and for our family. And he's more confident with reading, and he is speaking out more, and he's engaged more in class. And I really would love to see this happen to many, many more families because I know he is not the only one that's struggling with this.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And when you think about those moments, for you described your child as a pandemic baby, right? And what's interesting is that so many of our families have those moments, those difficult moments in their own family life, in the life of community. Our communities have struggles. But what's powerful, and I'll say this time and again, Connecticut has done it right when it comes to engaging parents in their moments and learning from parents in their moments, because you teach us, whether it's the institutions of learning, whether it's individual teachers, whether it's Miss Dawn, you teach us how to be better teachers through your experience because you see it firsthand. So whatever the crisis may be, we meet you where you are, and we're doing this better than anywhere else in the country. What happens when you shut out parents from the experience of learning is that they wonder in silence what may be happening behind those doors. But what happens when parents come into the door and are invited into the door, they see and they're able to respond dynamically and bring their own lived experience to the success of their children. So we thank you and we thank the other parents just for being that voice, not only that voice, but that informant in how it is that we can do better as educators. So thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Bob Janes with us, and it's really exciting to see the work come to fruition and to have the opportunity to be a part of this great work, and you're part of that. So you're in the classrooms, you're overseeing implementations of this model of high dosage, high impact tutoring. What are some takeaways from you and your work that you'd like to share with us?
Try that again. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for being here. It's funny. You read the reports and you hear the research that the researcher was talking about in the very beginning, and it's such a delight to see that come to fruition with students, with teachers, and parents in the classroom. You know, our model follows very much what the researcher and what Ajit laid out before. This idea where we are focusing on success in the student's regular math classroom. We're not going back to remediation and going back years and years and starting a middle school student, mid or early elementary. We are thinking about the things that can really help the student right then and there. And so suppose a student's in 8th grade struggling with solving equations. We're going to think about what are the essential prerequisites a student needs, what are the skills students needs to be successful right then and there. And that's really this idea of acceleration. The other piece is what we like to call at East Hartford scholarship skills, where, yes, a student may need skills in math to support themselves, but there may also be pieces involving confidence, involving literacy, understanding how to decode a word problem, things like that. And those also, we work on those in our tutoring as well with Ebony and all of our tutors. And that starts this flywheel, right? A student who is struggling in their regular math course, uh, maybe for a variety of reasons. And once they start to have success in their regular math course, they can see, oh my gosh, this tutoring that I'm getting, this relationship I'm developing is helping me with the mathematics, understanding, the content's happening, but also makes me want to be there, right? Makes me want to wake up in the morning, go to school and see my tutor and work with the students, work with the teacher in my regular math class. Has been amazing to see. Um, I think the other piece that the researcher we've seen talks about is this idea of consistency, right? It's not drop-in tutoring. It's not I'm getting stuck on this problem to go find a tutor. It's this consistent relationship. At East Hartford, we've tried a few different models. We've tried an every other day model. We've tried an everyday model as well. And in all the models we've worked with, the consistency is very important. Um, and I think zooming out, thinking about consistency moving forward, I know, we're looking at the governor's budget right now, and any ability to have consistent funding and access for so many children and families in the state, I think is super important. Year over year, the programs that we're talking about that we had parents and tutors talk about, I think are incredibly beneficial when there's a sustained effort, right? Um, and one of the things that we're seeing is, we'll have a student in 6th grade who maybe struggled in math a little bit, and they'll be with a tutor for the year, and they'll come back the next year and they'll go find that tutor, right? And they'll tell their friends about it, and tutoring becomes not this remediation where, oh, I'm bad at math, I can't read, I've got to go to this other room and talk to this person, and I'm stupid and I'm dumb. That's not what it is with these systems. It's, hey, maybe I've got some work to do here or there, but working with this person in this program, with this tutor, with these teachers, really gives me the confidence to succeed and again restart that flywheel of confidence, of success. And it's so different than what we've looked at in the past in terms of intervention and remediation. This past in school year 23-24, we started the school year with a kind of our traditional intervention model, which is where group of students was working with an interventionist, a certified teacher, in a larger group, usually 12 to 16 students. And then we used the same curriculum and pulled the same group of students when we started using high-dosage tutoring with tutors. And the difference was remarkable, both in terms of confidence. We've got messages from parents and from students, but also in terms of achievement scores. We see our students who receive tutoring not just catch up, but exceed their classmates. And so it's something that I have been just so grateful to be a part of and to connect, the funding at the state level to the programming, to the tutors, the parents, and the students. And something that I really hope we get to continue with.
Thank you for that. And the people of the state are investors. And every single dollar that the people send to this government and send for these purposes is critically important that we track. We want to make sure that wherever it is that we're investing, that it's working. And so it always strikes me that when we see something that works, we should resource it. And to your point, we should resource it consistently because there's so many ways in which we can waste money, but there's so many good ways in which we could target it in smart ways and get the return that we deserve as investors. And so just share with us a little bit in closing, what would happen if you lost this particular investment? You described all the good things. What would happen if it went away?
Yeah. I think there's first the ones we can kind of see at the surface level, right? So we can think about there may be a group of students who does not get the tutoring. And So, as a school district, we want to support every child every day, right? And so we would most likely return to our prior tutoring model, or our prior, excuse me, intervention model, which supports students in those skills that they're missing. But just because of the personalized relationship a tutor can have with their students does not support that level of personalization and that really strong relationship that they can have. And so, to some extent, students would miss out, and parents as well would miss out. But there's also those ripple effects where if you have a student, let's say, student in the regular math classroom in 7th grade math, they go see their tutor and they come back the next day and they're energized and they're confident. That student is going to participate more in that class, is going to require less intervention from the regular math teacher, so other students can benefit, and also we've seen this happen a lot, become a resource to their classmates, right? Hey, I learned this cool thing with my tutor. Let me show you. And so it spreads into the entire class and the entire school. And then I think the other piece that we sometimes miss with sporadic funding is the program and the system itself. It takes time to build a tutoring program. There's relationships with parents, right? Parents have to understand that the adult that's working with their student can be trusted. There's relationships with the tutors and the hiring process, right? We have folks in East Hartford. We try to do very local recruiting. We have Ebony, who has children in East Hartford Public Schools. We have graduates of East Hartford Public Schools tutoring, and all of our tutors are from the greater Hartford area. And so finding and recruiting that talent is one thing, and then holding on to it is another. And so a lapse in funding might mean that we lose that. And then shout out to the Go Tutoring Core. The work that they've done to work with us on training the tutors and on providing that support where we run into a situation. Hey, this happened. What do we do next? Hey, we're looking at bringing on some more tutors. Can we have them join us? And what training can we do mid-year? That relationship has also been strong and very beneficial to teachers, students, and parents. And so again, a lapse in funding would disrupt that relationship as well. So both for the reasons you see kids right in the classroom and so many more ripple effects.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you to this panel. We're now moving on to the second part of our conversation here. We're going to open it up just a little bit, but I want to share sort of a sneaky thing that we like to do when we set up these conversations, is that we start with the experts, we start with the lived experience, and then we go to legislators, and then we go to the people who have the power to make decisions. And we do that very intentionally because we always want the people who lead in these spaces to hear first from the people who are leading in your communities that you represent. I want to recognize, of course, that we had earlier we were joined by Representative Menapace, and we're now joined by Representative Hughes. Welcome, Representative. And again, I guess I'd like to open up, firstly, the space for any of our legislators who are here, our co-chairs who are here, just some of your reflections, reflections on what you've heard, and why you think continuing to invest in this work is important. And I'll open it up to either of you, and then Representative Hughes.
Told you I was raised right. Of course you're gonna go first.
Thank you, Senator. I just want to thank everybody who shared their expertise and their passion. I do think this work comes from that place. And I also have a COVID baby. So we started kindergarten in 2019. So didn't finish out that year. And I think one of the things we don't always talk about enough as legislators is sort of like the emotional duress of watching your child not thrive, and also feeling sort of helpless in that journey. And far too many families in Connecticut are experiencing exactly that. And I think that a program like this really is a lifeline for kids and families to feel less alone, and that we have a system that cares about their child succeeding and thriving. Uh, So I just want to thank you for being here and sharing that. Because where our kids start, it follows them for their whole trajectory. And so when we don't meet our kids' needs early on, those needs just get larger, and more difficult to close those gaps. I will speak for myself. I think, we know that the money spent on a program like this is money very well spent. And now it will be on us to go and be the messengers to our colleagues who also have other very worthwhile expenditures, right? And so we get into the negotiation of how we can allocate limited resources to many great needs. And that will be, that's the work of the legislature and the ongoing work for the next several months. But I think it's been wonderful to really put such a fine point on how effective this program has been to really achieve the objectives for our children.
Thank you. Representative Hughes.
Well, first, I would say thank you for all the hard work that you do to really reclaim the lives of some of these children that really have felt so lost and so disconnected. When we talk about disconnected youth, I think this is what we are speaking of. I do think that this is very important because you have children that otherwise, when you were speaking about how their confidence level is returned as a result of knowing the content of what is being taught, it also factors down into other subjects that they go to. Because if you are not doing well in a subject, and I speak from past that it puts a very bad overshadowing on your entire school day. You can't really feel good in any of your classes. So, you sit there dreading that class that you're not doing well in. And then that kind of trickles down to your abilities to feel confident in your other classes as well. So I really do think that, the tutoring aspect of this is really amazing. And I am hopeful that, the going forward, that there will be access to continuing this, as well as a groundswell of people that perhaps as a result of your fine work will find it in their heart to volunteer. That would, also help you as far as your bottom line is concerned. And I do understand that, there is a vetting process and that you certainly don't want just anyone to volunteer because this is going to impact the lives of students that already are having difficulties. So you want to make sure that this is a positive one. But I do think that there, perhaps are some retired educators out there that would find it in their heart to make a difference in the life of a small child. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Reddington Hughes, not only for being here, but for your commitment as well to this work. And I know that your words really do echo and resound across the state in terms of, wanting to make this investment and inviting those families and community who can contribute their time, their energy, their talent, and their treasure to do so. So thank you so much for that. Senator.
So, couple of things. I'm sitting here reading one of the most personal, gut-wrenching emails I received from a constituent, and I'm focused on this, but this conversation keep pulling me back and pulling me back. Because what I'm hearing from what's happening here, I heard the young lady say how thankful they were for they had the opportunity to do this. How what they're doing is not just impacting our children, but their community, their families. How this is going to. I looked at her. I thought she was a student over here. When I first came, I'm like, okay, we got a high school student here and a college student, and just to hear what you're doing and how it's impacting our children and young families. People gotta understand education is about relationship building. So it doesn't surprise me that on the days where the kids are being tutored, the attendance is better because the student is building a personal relationship with that adult who they don't want to let down, or who believes in them and is feeding them information, knowledge. That's why this program works. I saw this in the budget. I see budgetary numbers all the time. I saw, yeah, $5 million. And you look at these things, you're like, do you choose this one over this program? But when you sit here and see how important it is and how it's affecting and how it works, how our children are learning, how our parents are more engaged and involved, how we can bring more educators to the state of Connecticut who want to come back and make an impact on their community, these dollars are is more than a $5 million investment. It goes a long way because now this young lady can come back and be an educator and do and help people who didn't make it, who she knew had the same ability that she had, but kind of fell through the crack. And now she want to come back and give that person the opportunity, may come a tutor, and now impact their children. So that's Steve, again, thank you for putting this on, and thank you for showing the public what we do here when we invest in good programming that work. I will stop right there, but I do want to know how did you find your tutors? I guess that's the question I wanted to ask of East Hartford. How did you find your tutors? Because I like the fact that they're not educators. I like the fact that they come from the community in which their children go to school in. I think that's just as important. These are things that we used to do before and didn't get the help and support from state government. We did it in our churches, in our community centers, and things like that. Now we can find that we could use, if we use government funds to actually do something that actually turn things around, that's how the system is supposed to work. So my question to you is, how did you find your tutors? Is there a methodology, or do you partner with other organizations to bring people in? Because I think we need to do more of these things and find ways that, what's working in the community and find out what's in the community and bring that into the school. Yeah. As opposed to, we're the school and we're going to tell you what to do and this is what your kid needs.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. We actually partnered with two different organizations at the start. We partnered with the Go Tutor Corps, which is an AmeriCorps program, who we are still working with today. We also partnered with a for-profit tutoring organization that we no longer work with. And we really appreciate working with the Go Tutor Corps because they are committed to finding, I think we use the term educator in a lot of different ways sometimes, right? And so they're not always certified teachers. A lot of times the folks that they can bring in are interested folks who are often taking maybe a gap year from college. Maybe they just finished college. We have one tutor who graduated, is looking to go to law school next year, and so is taking this year to work with us. We also have community members that have come in to us, such as Ebony. The great thing, though, about this partnership is that they provide a solid foundation of training, but then also work with the district to say, what's the next step. And so East Hartford, and I know other districts have worked in the past to recruit tutors. And it can be challenging at times to kind of go it alone. But working with an organization like AmeriCorps, with the Go Foundation, has been beneficial in that they give us the support that we need, the training to kind of kickstart the program, and really the recruitment to help us find the tutors. And I know folks in the room came to East Hartford high school football games to put flyers in cars and pass them around and really rally the community. And we're so thankful for that. The other piece, I think, you mentioned the budgetary piece, and I know earlier I was asked the question about what would happen if this program went away. I think when people are looking at return on investment, East Hartford in particular, but I think all of Connecticut is really primed for high-dosage tutoring, right? We've had this grant for the past couple of years. We've seen the success. A lot of districts have programs already built, partnerships created, parents invested. And so the dollars that are spent now actually would have even a higher return on investment than it would in the past because the startup cost isn't there anymore. Right, we're ready to help kids in the classroom, to train tutors, and to really benefit the community. Ready and primed to do that in a way that perhaps we weren't just a couple of years ago.
Thank you for that. And we often talk about trust in this critical work of community lifting each other up. And part of that trust is having the investment come from inside the house. And when we invest in tutors that are from the communities in which they come, and when they then pay it forward by tutoring in their own communities. For compensation, by the way, this is important, right? We have the blessing of people who are able to give their time, but for those who can't, it's important that we match our resources with their hearts and resolve so that they can bring back to their community in a resourced way that makes a real difference. Again, targeting that investment in a way that brings many more returns. So, we're coming toward the conclusion of our time together. But, I just want to take a moment to point out the importance of having a legislature and leaders that are from community and that have lived experience. And I see our leaders here at the table, and I think about how wonderful it is to work with you because you bring the voices of your communities and your families to bear every single day that you do this work. And one of my favorite committees in this building for that reason is the Education Committee because of all of the heart, effort, energy, and experience that you bring to this work. So I just want to take a moment to thank you for that humanity. When you look at on the big screen here, and you think about how inaccessible government can seem sometimes. To be able to see leaders for the human beings that they are and the humanity and humility that they bring to this work is just really empowering. And it's empowering to young people and families who can see themselves in this very building and know that this is their house. So thank you for that. As we wrap up here, I want to call on our panelists just one more time. One thing that we have the benefit of doing when we're in a space like this is to have a call for action and to have a final word, a final ask, or a final anecdote as we say goodbye to each other, at least for now. So I'd like to really ask each of you to do so, and I'd like to start just at my furthest left here and work all the way through. If you could start just with just some final words for us, we would really appreciate that.
My final words would be simply to increase funding for education. Um, as I said, for me, I was poured into by my community, which has led me to want to do the same. And pouring into is done through funding as well. So that would be my main conclusion is to increase funding for educational resources. And in addition, with the research that I'm doing for my thesis, I've found that increasing funding also helps with voter trust. And so when we're also increasing funding, we're also decreasing disenfranchisement. So that would be my final conclusion for today. Thank you.
My final thoughts for today is that this isn't about me. This isn't about you. This is about our kids. And I don't know what better way to tell our kids that we love them than to support them. We have people who want to do the work, so let's give them that. Christmas is coming, and I tell my kids all the time, you're not getting toys, you're getting a book. And for the first time, I didn't get any groans, I didn't get any complaints, you know? And I think that's because my kids see me getting up every day. They see me, going through math packets at night. They see me writing. They see what I do, and they're proud of that. And now with my oldest son, he wants to do it too. I just think that's the biggest takeaway is that if you pour into it now, you're going to have kids who want to grow up and do this. They're going to want to come back home and help. So
Thank you. Irene?
Thank you. I think I do appreciate all of the comments here today. I've learned a great deal. We've been taking notes of like, how do we improve upon this going forward? I have three takeaways. One, certainly relationships matter and how we develop those relationships with our learners in the classroom. And those relationships last a lifetime with our learners. Classroom connected learning makes a significant difference. So if you are accessing this tutoring, how do you connect it back into the classroom? And the last thing I would ask all of us to do is let's try to change the frame a bit. Tutoring has kind of a negative connotation in some way. So how do we turn this into an innovation that we're doing? I mean, this is really innovative work that we're doing across Connecticut and with so many partners. So I would ask all of us to start thinking about this as an innovation from the inside out, and let's continue to innovate together.
So as an evaluation person, data research person, I would say that we should continue to invest in programs that produce evidence, and not only evidence, but also show a multiplier effect of that evidence. So, you know, in the governor's budget, there are a couple of projects, one of which is LEAP, which is our home visiting attendance program. And we have evidence to show that that program not only improves attendance, but also shows lower disciplinary incidents for students. So it's not just one thing, it's got other things. High dosage tutoring, we've seen increases learning and test scores, yes, but also improves math confidence and improves attendance. So I think when you see these evidence-based efforts that have multiplier effects, I think we invest even more strongly in those types of programs. And when we launch this, let it be a partnership with the districts who are engaged in this work, and have them put some skin in the game too, have them invest. And, you know, in our proposal, we talk about it as a matching grant, so that we want sort of commitment from the local side. So I would say that would be a good next step forward.
Thank you again for hearing our story. And even though Elijah is not where he needs to be yet, I emphasize yet, because he will get there. I pray and I hope that this program continues. And once he's all set, I really would love to hear from more parents like myself with more success stories of their children turning around the reading and math as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So two final thoughts. First, I've learned that it really takes a village, right? A very, very large and interconnected village, right? Everything from our partners at the State Department and legislators, down to the districts, the parents, and of course the students who really are at the center of all this. And to use that whole network to innovate and to think about how we can best support the students by having all the stakeholders at the table. My second one is to encourage everyone to strike while the iron's hot. I think, like I said in my last comment, that in my conversations with my colleagues in different districts around the state, this has been very successful. And the infrastructure and the connections exist to continue this. My understanding right now is that in the governor's budget, there's funding, we're looking at funding for the 26-27 school year, and I would encourage, you know, why not the 25-26 school year? Why not avoid kind of that gap through whatever means we can? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for referencing that village. You know, in closing, I'd like to thank the village that came together to put this wonderful conversation together and to move this conversation forward, because we're not done. And as has been intimated by our leaders here and by our thoughtful panelists, you know, the decisions about funding are being made as we speak. And so our work is not done, but we're invigorated by your work and by your testimony. And we're also I'm so grateful on behalf of my organization, CONCAN, my thoughtful colleagues, Hamish McPhail and Lou Ortiz. I want to thank our partners, Boundless Literacy, Go Tutor Core, New Haven Reads, the United Way of Greater New Haven, Achievement First, Teach for America, Connecticut, and Read to Grow. And just on that note, Read to Grow, be on the lookout. We're going to have another public conversation on early literacy in the next few weeks. And in some ways, it's going to be the continuation of this conversation because, you know, as I said, we're a little bit sneaky as policy folk. And when I think about early literacy interventions, I think about how that in a high dosage way really helps young people reach their dreams as you teach us. So again, Thank you to our co-collaborators, and let's continue to do this work together. Thank you, CTN, as always, for covering us. And thank you to the Education Committee, because without your leadership and your stewardship, we just couldn't move this work forward. And with that, have a wonderful day.